What's going on, everybody? It is episode 252 of the Derek Diamond Experience podcast. I am your host, Derek Diamond, and it's getting to be quite comfortable on Facebook Live. This week I started doing my daily morning show. It's been a lot of fun. I had, I think, over 100 people watch the first episode, around the same for today's show if you're watching this live on Facebook. It's been a lot of fun. You know, as I mentioned on the show last week, I am working from home. So in order to kind of break up the monotony, it kind of gave me the idea to do my own daily show, because I respect shows that they don't just do a weekly podcast. Like, you've got to have some dedication to do a weekly show. And I tell people that, like, it's not easy to do a weekly podcast, but to do one 5 days a week, or some do it every day. You know, there's a podcast that I listen to that they've been doing a show every single day since they were quarantined. So it's absolutely wild. Oh, Rob from the legendary First Circus has joined. Welcome, Rob. Thank you for watching. So it's something that, you know, I've been having a lot of fun with, and there's been really good discussion on what to watch while you're in quarantine, because things are kind of nuts right now with the coronavirus. And I touched on it a little bit last week, but in addition to me working from home, it's like I have a lot more time to do stuff that I'm not used to having. And it's been kind of weird because with my job, I'm just so used to just constantly going at 100 miles per hour. The fact that if I'm not doing anything, I get bored really quickly, because I have to do something productive during the day, whether it's edit the podcast, whether it's work on my next script. You know, I have to do something throughout the day, or at least something during the day. But I've been having a lot more time to watch stuff, and that kind of goes into at least the temporary direction of the show, because I had a contingency plan for baseball season, which was supposed to start in 2 or 3 weeks. Josh Shinnework and Brittany Smith have joined. Thank you guys for watching. So I had this plan in place, and now it's like I had to scramble to do more content, which might sound kind of weird, but it's like I had all this stuff in the can, because I have panels that I moderated at the comedy festival back in January that I haven't released yet, because I was saving them for baseball season. So if there was a week where there was a homestand and I didn't have time to do a show, I could have just released that. But now I'm just going to hold those in the can for, I don't want to say an indefinite amount of time, because I will release them at some point. But yeah, I don't know when that's going to be, because I mean, eventually baseball is going to happen. It could be mid-May, it could be early June, it could be late June. You know, my personal prediction, and I guess I'll say that so I won't get in trouble. In my opinion, I think is what you're supposed to say to not get in trouble. I don't think we're going to have baseball until late June, which means that I've got quite a bit of time to fill content for this show. Now, my original plan was I was going to release these panels and then batch record some discussions with friends about movies that have already come out, whether it's like the 35th anniversary of a movie, 40th anniversary. That way I would have stuff in the can. But now I don't necessarily have to do that. So what the plan is for right now, and that's probably going to change once baseball actually happens, but my plan is I'm going to do a live show every week. And it's going to be every Tuesday at 8 p.m. It's going to be either a review discussion like this that I'm doing by myself. I might bring a friend on to review a movie, because my plan was I was going to review a summer movie like Black Widow or Wonder Woman 1984, whatever was coming out throughout the summer. Well, all of those movies have been pushed back due to the coronavirus, because they actually announced today that Wonder Woman's not going to come out until, I think, August. We still don't know when Black Widow is going to come out. So I have to then go to Netflix, Amazon Prime, other streaming sources to get content to talk about. Now, I might still bring on friends to review older movies, just to break up, I don't want to say the monotony, but so that way I'm not doing the exact same thing every single week. So that's what you're going to get for the foreseeable future. And you guys are going to decide on what I review every week. So if you go on my Facebook page now, as well as Twitter, I posted a poll on what you guys would like to see me review for next week. Now, the thing that sucks about Facebook is that it only gives you two options. One is Little Women, and the second is Logan Lucky. Little Women was one of those movies that came out near the end of 2019. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see it during its theatrical run. But I've heard nothing but phenomenal things about it, and I do really want to watch it. And Logan Lucky just looks like one of those fun movies that I would watch at 11 o'clock at night on a Friday or a Saturday. You're just sitting at home, might make, something simple for dinner, and just kick back, shut the lights off, and turn my brain off and enjoy the ride. But the thing is, I'm going to have a lot more time to review stuff. So the poll will run from now until Friday, and that will give me the weekend to watch whatever the winner is going to be. Now, what I might do for the following week is invite a friend on and pick two options that, I don't know if it's going to be, maybe Steve Wise would be one. It could be someone else. I have no idea. But we'll have to decide that over the weekend. But for my review this evening is a movie that Adam Waldron, who was one of the first guests, actually technically the first guest on the show, recommended to me, and it was called The Aeronauts. And this movie came out in 2019, and it's a biographical adventure film directed by Tom Harper and written by Jack Thorne, from a story co-written by Thorne and Harper. And it's based on the 2013 book Falling Upwards, How We Took to the Air by Richard Holmes. Now, first off, I didn't know this was based off of a book whenever I watched it. And he told me about this movie a couple of weeks ago, but I just haven't sat down and watched it. And then finally I was like, you know what? I told him that I would watch it, so I'll make that my first actual review of this stretch of live shows. Let's see, Emily Dillon and Corbin Stuckey have joined. Thank you guys for watching. So I didn't know really what to expect from this movie because I didn't watch any trailers. I didn't watch any content for it because this was a movie that I wanted to go in completely blind. And Adam had given me a brief synopsis on what the movie was about. Because that's kind of what I like to do now for movies like this, that if I don't know anything about it, if I don't follow the making of it, Corbin says, when are you going to have me on the show? We'll chat about that. Like I said, I'm being a little more flexible on content because whenever I switched the format of the show, I wanted to strictly have filmmakers on the show, whether that's for a review or for an interview. But we'll chat about that, Corbin. We'll chat off air about that. But I didn't quite know what to expect from this film. And I'll admit I haven't gotten too big into the whole Netflix exclusive or Amazon exclusive, Hulu exclusive stuff. Other than a brief few things, because I really got into the Marvel shows on Netflix, especially Daredevil and the first season of Jessica Jones. The quality kind of fell off after the first season, with Daredevil being the exception to that. But I did binge those shows, especially Daredevil, because I love that character. I remember reading the comic books back in the early 2000s after the Ben Affleck movie came out, which I'm actually one that I don't completely hate that movie. It doesn't hold a candle to the show, but if you watch the director's cut of that movie, and this might be a discussion for a whole nother podcast, but let's see. Let me close that window out real quick. But that's a whole discussion for another podcast. If you watch the director's cut of the Daredevil movie, it's actually very good. It's a little more gritty and has an entire subplot that, was completely cut out of the theatrical version. So, I didn't know really anything about the Aeronauts. I didn't know that it was exclusive to Amazon. It's an Amazon original film. But it premiered at the Telluride Film Festival on August 30th, 2019, followed by a showing at the 2019 Toronto International Film Festival. And then it was released in the U.S. on December 6th of 2019. And I'll also say the only actor that I know from this film is Felicity Jones, and I only know her from Rogue One. And I did really enjoy her in that movie, and I enjoyed her in this movie as well, that I'll get to in a second. But to give kind of a brief synopsis of what the story is about, it takes place in the 1800s in London. Scientists James Glacier and pilot Amelia arrive for a balloon launch. Essentially what this movie is about, this is like I'm looking at Wikipedia, this is like just a summary of the movie from like start to finish. So essentially, Eddie Redmayne plays a scientist named James Glacier. You could say he's the first meteorologist. He believes that the weather can be predicted, but he has to go into a balloon into the upper sky to get accurate readings, and he needs a pilot. So Amelia, who is played by Felicity Jones, she's an aeronaut, essentially a balloon pilot. And throughout the movie, you find out fairly early on that her husband has passed away. But to not really give away any spoilers, you find out how he passes away. And it's really traumatic to her, and she still hasn't really confronted her, I don't want to say anxieties, but essentially her dealings with that. She is essentially like buried this deep inside of her, and she won't confront it. She suppresses it instead. And you find out through flashbacks, and that was something that kind of surprised me throughout the movie, is that the goal is actually achieved fairly early on. And it's one of those movies that goes through flashbacks, and it kind of shows Glacier's past, it shows Amelia's past, and you kind of build the backstory from there. But and I guess I shouldn't talk down to Amazon and Netflix originals, because the quality is actually very good. Visually, it's a very stunning film, especially the shots inside the balloon. And I'm fairly confident that they just filmed this in front of a blue screen, but the lighting and everything of these scenes looks really, really good. Like, this is legit, like, big budget quality stuff. And the budget was only $40 million. Now, it didn't make that much at the box office because it had, honestly, a very, very limited run. But overall, I've heard nothing but good things about the film from what, I've read about it since seeing it, because I didn't read any reviews or anything like that leading up to it, because I just wanted to just sit down and enjoy it. The pacing, I thought, was interesting, because I'm not the biggest fan of nonlinear storytelling, but I can appreciate it, and I've seen it done much worse than it was done here. But I'm not really the biggest fan of it. Like, I have really no issue with it, but it's not a story that I necessarily would make. But kind of moving on to the actual acting, I thought, the two leads did a fantastic job, because I'm a huge fan of films that have a very limited cast as far as the leads go. Like, I'll use I Am Legend as an example. That the majority of that movie was Will Smith by himself. Well, he had his dog with him, but as far as human interaction, he had very, very limited reaction. Same thing with Tom Hanks in Castaway. To me, actors that can act by themselves and carry an entire film, or a duo, because it kind of had, even though the budget was $40 million and it looked fantastic and it felt like a big budget film, it was a very intimate story with these two characters and them dealing with their own issues and confronting them throughout the story and kind of banding together to avoid catastrophe, because there's some dramatic stuff fairly early on in the film. And again, that was another concern of mine, because this huge, I'll go ahead and say it, they get caught in a thunderstorm and you're thinking that they both might die. Well, they obviously don't, but this happens within like the first third of the movie. And I was thinking, where are they going to go from there? Because there was a little bit of a dead time between that and then the other climactic moment of the film. And I was thinking, where's the suspense here? I get the conflict, but there's no like giant, I don't want to say dispute would be the right word to say, but I feel like the suspense wasn't really there until nearly the end, when you find out what happened to Amelia's husband, and then the moments that happen after that. But I really felt like this was a really well done film, and it made me appreciate even more the smaller budget films, because really leading up to when I made The Parker Syndrome was when I really got into independent film. There were some that I had watched every now and then. Obviously I'm a huge fan of Clerks and the Kevin Smith universe. But other than that, I didn't really have that much exposure to the independent world. And this just continues. And this is a great thing for filmmakers, not just myself, but really for anybody who wants to make a film, because there are so many avenues out there. And I would even throw in YouTube. I've seen some really good-looking short films on YouTube. Now, the problem with that is everything is a little more competitive because you have all these different outlets. But 20 years ago, I probably wouldn't have been able to make a movie. And now with, the people that I know, the connections I've made, I can do that. Now, we're going to see when that's, because I'm not going to say if, because I am going to make another movie, but that will probably be, one, when this whole coronavirus thing calms down, but I've got to finalize the script first. I had hoped to shoot it this summer. Whether that happens or not, I'm not sure. It might have to wait until the fall, but we'll have to see. But that'll be something that I talk about, in the coming months. But overall, I would absolutely recommend The Aeronauts, because it's a nice, I won't call it little because I feel like that term is kind of demeaning, but it's a nice little intimate story with great visuals, good acting. The cinematography I thought was really good. There's not too much to knock about it, even though, as I mentioned, I think my biggest criticism would be it felt a bit slow around the middle of the movie, and the going back and forth between flashbacks got a little bit, I won't say jarring, but a little excessive, if you will. But overall, I really enjoyed the film, and I actually liked that I didn't know really any of the actors other than Felicity Jones. I think she was the highlight of the film. I thought Eddie Redmayne, who played James Glacier, did a nice job too. But I felt like Amelia's story really carried the film overall. And it was nice, being introduced to new actors, because that's another great aspect about these Amazon original films or streaming original films. It gives more people work, not just directors and writers. It gives actors more opportunity too. But overall, I would highly recommend that you watch The Aeronauts. It's, I think, how long is this movie? I want to say it was under 2 hours, or it had to have been right at 2 hours. No, actually, I think it was, and I should have looked this up, or I should have had it in front of me, but it was it was a good movie. I actually very much enjoyed it, and I'm glad that Adam recommended it to me, because otherwise I probably wouldn't have known about it. But I look forward to watching more movies like this in the coming weeks, even some that I'll never review on this show, because I am a fan of film first, and I would be watching movies, regardless if I was doing the show or not. But I am glad that it gives me the opportunity to have this outlet to discuss these movies. And on a scale of 1 to 10, I would probably give this movie a solid 7, 7.5. Rotten Tomatoes, it has an approval rating of 72% based on 178 reviews, with an average score of 6.42 out of 10. The consensus states, thrilling visuals and the substantial chemistry of its well-matched leads make the Aeronauts an adventure well worth taking. Metacritic gave it an average score of 60 out of 100 based on reviews from 36 critics. So, sounds like Rotten Tomatoes pretty much agrees with what I was saying. So, yeah, overall, that would be my thoughts on the Aeronauts. Definitely check it out. But all in all, I think that's I'm going to wrap up for this week's live show. For those who are listening or watching live, thank you guys as always. For those who are listening on the download, stay tuned for my interview with actress/writer/director Honey Lauren. We actually had a really good discussion about her career and really what it takes to make it into the film industry and really stay in it, for as long as she has. It was one of the more informative chats that I've had in quite a while. So definitely stay tuned and check that out. But for those who are watching live, I'll see you guys next week.